What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Who is ready to talk about some volleyball? Let's go. We just finished day number 3. Technically day number 4, but we're actually not going to count that first day where we only had one match. But we just finished day number 3, and we're setting up for day number 4 of the 2025 FIVB Men's Volleyball World Championships. My name is Everett, and I'm ready to talk about some volleyball. Now, after 3 days of championships, we already know, we already have a number of teams who have qualified for the round of 16. And then we already have a number of teams who are also guaranteed to not move on, to be done, to be heading home after their next match. And I'm pretty sure that's what everyone here is here to hear me talk about. Everyone is here to hear me talk about what happened at 2 a.m. Eastern time this morning. That I woke up, first and foremost, went to bed with Sam, went to bed with my partner. She started dozing off sleep. I went downstairs, had a nice little nap because I didn't want my alarm to wake her up. I didn't want my alarm to go off at 1:55 in the morning and have her wake her up before a full day of work. So I went downstairs, got myself nice and cozy, had a bit of a nap, woke up at 1:55, and boy, oh boy, am I ever happy that I did. Now, today we're going to go over some of the biggest results. We're going to break down some of the pools. And of course, we are going to break down what everyone wants to talk about, and that is the Canada versus Japan match this morning. All right, now, first and foremost, we do have 6 teams who are guaranteed to be moving on to the round of 16. And I bet you, looking at this list, this is not the teams that you would have expected coming into this tournament. Turkey, Bulgaria, Poland, Netherlands, Canada, and the USA. I think, realistically, at this juncture, only 2 of those teams would have been suspected, right? Poland and the Americans, based off of the pools that they are in and the teams that they are. And you know what? Big ups to all these teams qualifying for the next round, qualifying for the round of 16. And then, of course, we also have the teams that are guaranteed to not be moving on: Chile, Japan, Libya, Qatar, and Romania. Obviously, we're going to talk about all of those teams as well. But first and foremost, we have to talk about what you're all here to hear me gloat about. Here, H-E-R-E. Here, H-E-A-R. All right? Now, if you don't know, if you've been living on a rock, if you haven't been seeing me pop off on Reddit and on Instagram and just generally giving the weebs what for, Canada absolutely dismantled Japan today, this morning. Canada, after a sketchy start to the 2025 World Championships and a 3-1 win over Libya, put up an absolute masterclass against Japan today, and we're going to break it down point by point. It was really just dominant by Canada on so many levels. They dominated in pretty much every single one of the categories, right? It was an absolute domination in offense. Not only did they outkill Japan 40-33, the attacking numbers were way different. 57% kill percentage and a 49% efficiency by the Canadians, versus only 43 kill percent and a 19% efficiency by Japan. And the disparity doesn't end there. Blocking absolutely huge in this one. Canada's block much better after the game 1 against Libya. Dan Lewis talked about it in his post-game presser against Libya that, hey, we need to be better blocking. We need to be more aggressive in blocking. And there's even times in the timeout where early in the first set, and he talked about, hey, we don't need to be going up with these guys. We just need to be going straight over. All right. And we saw it in this one. Canada, 10 stuff blocks to Japan's only 2, but it also had on the touches, and 11 touches to only 6 for Japan. It was absolute domination at the net, both offensively and defensively for Canada. Serving wise, On the surface level, it looks like Japan did much, much better. They got 7 aces versus Canada's only 3. But I will say that a lot of those aces in favor of Japan it was just momentary lapses of judgment, just questionable service from Canada, which, you know what, we've come to expect being Canada. However, when you look down into the numbers a little bit, Canada had much better reception overall. Japan, 44% positive and only 13% perfect versus Canada's 42% positive and 26% perfect. And that was the biggest difference, in my opinion. Japan, for the style of play that they run, for the way that they play volleyball, for the speed that they need to run, they need to be in system. And they just weren't. They weren't throughout the entirety of this match, right? Just really struggling to be in system. Whereas Canada, I thought their side out game was so clean. So clean on first ball side out, and then really good in transition. And we'll talk about that a little bit as well. And then, of course, defensively, you can see it there. It's not often that you have Canada or anyone really outdig Japan, but that was exactly what it was today. It was a workhorse type mentality for the Canadians. They were third line grinders, and they went out and really smothered the Japanese offense. 51 digs for Canada and only 44 for Japan. Now, I did have a notion that this match was going to be a really good one for Canada when Luke Herr went off on that serving run in the first set, right? It was 6-6, then all of a sudden it was 12-6, and there's always something special when Luke can go on one of those serving runs, and that's exactly what we saw when Canada beat the US at home in Ottawa in the 2024 World League or Nations League, sorry, aging myself a little bit here, or also when Canada beat Cuba in the semifinals of the 2023 NORCECA Championships, which you can watch right here on this channel because we streamed it. There's just something. He just has a little bit something where, you know what, when his serving is crisp, the rest of his game is crisp, and that is exactly what we saw in this one for Canada. And I mean, as I said before, Canada's offensive numbers, 57% kill percentage, 49% perfect. They only got blocked 2 times. Their block was only touched, I think, a total of 8, right? So it was just really a clinic at the net for Team Canada. There was only a couple of times where I said to myself, oh, maybe that wasn't the best decision. He spread that ball out nicely, you know, in serve receive, a lot of Hogue, a lot of Vernon Evans, in transition, a lot of Kofi. Kofi was absolutely unreal. And I mean, Dan Lewis even talked about it afterwards, that it's very tough to set someone like Kofi because he doesn't hit a very traditional ball. So it was an unreal job by Luke Herr, and you could just tell that it just permeated through the rest of the team. All right, it was unreal. Now, first and foremost, we have to talk about this man right here. I don't want to hear any more Shawan Vernon Evans slander. I don't want to hear any bullshit about how he's washed, about how he was playing for a third-rate Japanese team, or, you know, look at what happened when he played for Perugia. If you've ever talked shit about Shawan Vernon Evans in the past few years, shut your mouth. Just absolutely shut your mouth, because he just put on an absolute clinic. I mean, he was unreal. Absolutely unreal. 14 points, 12 for 23. He was 52% hitting, 43% efficiency, 1 block and 1 ace, and he was good everywhere. He was making digs. He was getting touches on the block. That serving run that he went on in the second set really opened up that set and like really started to clinch it for us. He was absolutely unreal all match long, and I am so happy. I am so happy to see this man back in a Team Canada jersey. It warms my soul. He's someone that I've watched grow up here in the OVA system, watched him playing for Pac-Man, watched him play on the beach, you know, heard about his struggles at the FTC, watched him bloom in 2017 and grow. And he's someone that I always hoped would come back to the national team. And the way that he did it in this one, absolute chef's kiss, no notes. He was unreal. Okay? Now, moving forward. Capitaine, mon capitaine, let's go. Another man that I've heard so much slander about in the Discord. Oh, when is Nick going to retire? Oh, when is he going to go on? And guess what? He went out there and set the tone. All right, 13 points, 12 for 20, 60% hitting, 45% efficiency. He was almost automatic, but it was the way that he was doing it too. He had a crazy cross-court attack at one point, a beautiful 4-4, but then his out of system, because his passing maybe wasn't the best, and of course Canada was out of system a little bit throughout this one, but his ability to score off the net, hitting elbows, going high off hands, using that block day by day by day, it was, or shot by shot by shot, it was absolutely unreal from Nick Hogue. I haven't seen him in this form, man. Maybe I haven't seen him, but like, him out there reminded me of watching him dominate for Quebec at the 2013 Canada Games in Sherbrooke. That's what it was, a vintage Nick Hogue for me. And you absolutely love to see it just stepping up after Canada was a little bit sketchy in the first match against Libya. So you love to see Le Capitaine, Mr. Nicolas Hogue, just going out there and absolutely balling it out. You love to see it. It was awesome. Now, moving through, I talked about Kofi. He was unreal. There was a moment in the second set where they just kept on feeding him, and nothing could be done. Same thing in the third. Nothing can be done when a guy is hitting the ball at 12 feet at its peak. Okay, he was 8 for 9 in attacking. He had an 89% efficiency with one block. He said he only had one block too, which I think is absolutely ludicrous. I don't know who's out there keeping these stats, but Kofi was unreal. And the reality is that if he's going to be hitting the ball like that and Luke is going to be finding him in that space, there's not many middles in the world who are going to be able to contest like that. He's not floating up there looking and hitting the ball. He's not hitting a meter ball. He's hitting a quick. Luke is shooting that ball up and he's cutting it off and taking angles. It was absolutely unreal from Kofi. Now, real quick, lost reverence. Siobhan Vernon Evans was great. Volleyball Canada did beg him to come back. That was a Siobhan Vernon Evans decision. If you know me, you know I'm susceptible to being maybe a little critical of Volleyball Canada, but we can't be critical of Volleyball Canada for not having Siobhan Vernon Evans around. That was a Siobhan Vernon Evans decision, and it was his decision to come back, okay? So anyone out there be like, oh, stupid Volleyball Canada, that wasn't a Volleyball Canada thing, okay? It absolutely wasn't throughout this one, okay? Kofi, coming back to him right here, also led us in break points, right? 5 break points on the night. And to me, that means as soon as this team is in a transition, his ability to get off the net, identify the ball, and get to the net is so good. His speed, right? He's actually not the biggest guy out there. I think he's like 6'5", 6'6". He's not huge for being in the middle. Obviously, he's one of the best jumpers in the world, but his speed is what makes it so important. And he has such underrated footwork. For him to be able to hit the ball the way he does means that his footwork is so on point. And I'm actually going to have to do a breakdown of his footwork and the way he hits the ball, because there's no one else who does it like him in the world. And a lot of people need to be taking notes, because next year is going to be fun for when he's playing for Lublin. And now, I think when you look up and down the lineup, when you look up and down the roster for this one, it was unreal. This man right here, Isaac Islinga, he had a really poor start to the tournament, ended up getting subbed out for Jackson Young, but I thought he bounced back really well. 8 points in this one, and he was also our best passer, 48% positive, 38% perfect on 21 targets. He had the most targets on the team. And as I said, he was super clutch in the third set, made a couple of blocks as well, and was just overall unreal. You love to see that from the rookie who'll be heading to Tools for his first season of pro next year. And then you also got to give a big shout out to, I guess, the former captain in Finn McCarthy. He was big up at the net. Offensively, maybe not the best game for him. I think he was about 2 for 6, but he had 4 blocks in this one and a couple of massive one-on-one stuffs at big moments just to get the boys going. And then you cannot forget Mr. Golden Bear himself out of Vernon, BC, Landon Curry, led the match in digs, just is able to keep the boys going, keep the rallies alive. And it was wonderful to see how the entire team just did their role, played the role. It was an absolute masterclass by none other than Mr. Dan Lewis. Dan Lewis outcoached the shit of Laurent Tilly in this one. It wasn't even close. It was not even close. How this team was prepared on the blocking. Their block defense was absolutely unreal. That was textbook Maple Volleys volleyball. I thought that there was so many times where, you know, his timeouts were well planned. As soon as Japan started getting that momentum going, Lewis was out there to make the call, and also with the applicable feedback as well, right? We'll talk about Tilly's timeouts in a little bit, but I thought that every single time Dan Lewis made the timeout, he was always giving good feedback, always sharing information. That to me is how well they were dialed in on this game plan. You could tell that this team came in prepared for they came prepared for Japan to be their best. They weren't expecting this one to go for 3. I absolutely guarantee it. They were not expecting it, but instead we saw one of the best matches, if not the best match from Team Canada this summer. And I think so much of the credit, yeah, sure, the guys have to go out there and play, and they did that, but this man right here got them ready. Everything was unreal, and it was so good to watch. I am so glad I woke up at 2 a.m. for that one. I'm a little sad I didn't do a watch along, because you guys would have seen a lot of fist pumping, a lot of whispered fist pumping at 2-3 a.m. in the morning. It was unreal. Just this way, especially the way all the weebs have kind of shit on us over the years. This one felt really, really good. Now, when you're talking about this Japanese team, there was a few big factors. I already talked about how bad they were overall, and they really, really struggled. Like, this is a team that needs to be in rhythm. Now, there's been a lot of talk on the Discord is like, how good is, Masahiro Sakita if Japan is this bad or without him? But I think there's a lot of factors in this. Obviously, they're missing some of their big players. They're missing Sakita. They're missing Kentaro Takahashi and Yamauchi down the middle. Both of those guys make a big difference in terms of being able to close the block, being able to be ready and available on offense as well. And you weren't being able to see that for Japan. And then also, I didn't think that of missing Yuji Nishida would be a big deal, but not having him and how Kento Miura struggled was really, really tough to watch for Japan. Now, as I said, like, their serve receive was absolutely atrocious. 44% positive, 13% perfect. They need to be in system. A team like Japan needs to be in system, and they just weren't. And the reality is that Canada and Turkey, neither of which are fantastic serving teams. So you really have to question there, especially, when it comes a lot from the liberos. Both Yamamoto, who was pulled after 2 sets, and Ogawa, who was a little bit better in the third, struggled quite a bit. But when you look at some of the biggest factors, I think it has to be what we're looking on this screen right here. The stars for Japan just did not show up, right? Perugia fans feeling a little bit of PTSD watching Ishikawa out there. Only 5 points, 1 for 12, 8% kills, minus 17 efficiency from the captain and number one player on this team. Kento Miura, same thing. I mean, he had a decent amount of points, but still 8 for 22, only 14% efficiency. He was also an error machine, right? He had 4 of their 8 errors overall. And that's another thing too. When you look at the errors of these two teams, like, it wasn't even close. Canada was playing a super efficient game, whereas Japan, anytime they started to get going, anytime they would create any time of momentum, they would make a terrible error. They wouldn't challenge Canada's block. They were trying to run away from it. And you could tell that they had a little bit of PTSD, especially from that first set, trying to go up against Canada's block. Now, Ran, I actually thought Ran was okay. He was 9 for 16 in attacking, did have a 38% efficiency, which was all right, but his passing was where they struggled. Sure, he was 47% positive, but he was only 6% perfect on 17 targets. And as I talked about, Japan is a team that needs to be in system. And they just weren't. They absolutely weren't. And you could tell that they couldn't get any type of momentum going. They had nothing going for them. They were out there looking scared, right? Japan reminded me of like 2015 Japan. Even like, as I said before, the liberos, Yamamoto and Ogawa. Yamamoto was 31 positive and only 15% perfect on 13 targets. He was aced once. And then Ogawa's numbers were a little bit better, 56 and 22 on 9 targets, but he got aced twice. He got aced twice in one set, and that's not what you need when you're looking in to bring in a libero for a clutch set. That was their world championship saving set, and I mean, they did bring Otsuka, and I thought Otsuka was really, really good. He was the only guy who was getting anything going. But at that point, you could just tell that Canada was rolling, and they had that confidence, and their offense was rolling, and there was not much that Japan could do to try and save it. But I do think that when talking about Japan, I guess I missed my picture. I had a team picture of them, and I guess I didn't bring it into my slideshow here. But I think, I talked about it a little bit earlier, but Dan Lewis outcoached the shit out of the legendary Laurent Tilly. And I don't know what was up. I don't know what was happening behind the scenes. He seems distant and unattached to the results of what's happening. Even go back and watch his interview after the Turkey match, and it's very well, we lost. You win some, we'll lose some. Hopefully we can play better the next time. It didn't seem like there was any urgency out here at a World Championships where you need to win 2 matches to be able to move on. You've already lost one, and you're in a pool with 2 other VNL teams. A lot of teams had a luxury of only playing with one other VNL team, if that. A lot of these other teams, like the US and Poland, these other top teams are having to play much lesser teams and kind of just float through it. Japan, it wasn't the case. They had to play Turkey. They had to play Canada. These are 2 teams who are pretty good, and it just didn't seem like they were caring. At one point in the second set, Shawan Vernon-Evans is going on a serving run. He called a timeout, and he goes, they're just getting lucky with their digs, and they're just taking them off the chest like this. And it was just I've seen high school coaches give that kind of advice. And this is when they're down in the second set, already an 0-4 in sets in the tournament, right? His communication looks lazy and like he didn't care. For a guy who's spent the past 5 years in the SV League, or the V League, now the SV League, you would think that he would learn how to communicate more efficiently with his athletes, right? Now, when you compare him with guys like Farhad Akbash with the Japanese women teams, or Vita Heinen with the Chinese team, they always translate so succinctly and directly with their translator, right? It's say something, let the translator speak. Say something, let the translator speak. Make direct eye contact. And he's just kind of sitting there, just talking and just saying whatever and blah, 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 blah. And it just, I don't know what was going on. It just seemed like there was absolutely no direction and no game plan from this team heading in. And I honestly would be so surprised if Japan kept Laurent Tilly after this year. Right? If I'm Philip Blaine, I'm kind of being like, told you so. Told you so, right? Because, man, it was really, really tough to watch. If I was a Japanese fan, I would have been calling for his head, especially getting outcoached by Dan Lewis, who is a rookie head coach at this level. I don't Dan Lewis coached circles around him. It wasn't even close, and it was kind of tough to watch. Now, for the record, I don't hate Japan. I don't hate the Japanese team at all. And I know there's got a bunch of, Japanese fans who are going to clip this shit out and they're going to call me racist on Twitter and whatever it is. But, and if you think I'm racist, just go back and listen how I talked about the Japanese women all summer long, from VNL, and from VNL all the way to the World Championships. I loved watching the Japanese women play. No doubt, like, I had so much fun. I loved watching Farhad Akbas. I loved talking to him in the VNL. And I just got none of that from the men's team. And now I do want to bring some Japanese fans down to earth a little bit, because I was seeing a lot of, oh, wow, Canada finally managed to beat Japan. I'm sorry. Japan's been good for 3 or 4 years. That's about it. Right? This is their results. You're looking at the results right now from World Championships since 1986. They have one quarterfinal berth in 1986, and that was back in 2000 since 1986, and that's back in 2006, a year that they've hosted. Japan, historically, I mean, one of the great teams in volleyball, but historically in the past 40 years, not necessarily one of the best. In my time growing up in volleyball in the 2010s, Japan was an absolute bucket. I knew that when Canada played Japan, like I wouldn't, in the 2010s, I wouldn't have woken up to watch Canada versus Japan. And I didn't back in the day, because I knew it didn't matter. I knew it would get a win. And I mean, what frustrates me the most is that, you have all of these weebs who love posting the Eugene Ishida 8 aces against Canada at the World Cup. Guys, the World Cup was not a real event, right? It was a qualifier event for the Olympics that Japan always got a bid to because they were the host, right? If you go back and look at that roster for Team Canada, I'm sorry, we had guys like Blake Shearhorn and Byron Katarakis starting for the team. And no shade on either of those guys. I love both of those guys, both personally fantastic people, and they're really good players as well. But this wasn't our team. This wasn't our starters back then. I think, like, we had Hogue on that roster. Other than that, like, we had a young Stephen Marr, and that's about it. And still, Japanese fans act like Japan is the best thing since sliced bread. So I really beg for you, if you are a Japanese fan and you're watching this and you're feeling triggered and you're feeling a little upset about it, turn off YouTube. Get off of TikTok. You don't need to see highlight reels, okay? And go watch a full match. Go educate yourself and watch a full match, right? We love the fact that haiku has brought so many fans into the sport, but man, show a little bit of respect, okay? Show a little bit of respect, because as June just pointed out in the chat, this is Canada's B team, right? Japan was missing a lot of players. So was Canada. No Stephen Marr. No Eric Lepke, no Danny Demyanenko, okay? No Arthur Schwartz, four of their most important players for the 2024 Paris run, okay? So if you want to go out there and talk more shit and talk about how Canada should be an easy game for Japan, it is not the case. And historically, it is not the case, all right? So Japanese fans, I'm sorry. Your team just wasn't good enough in this one. And I'll be honest, it makes me sad. I've loved watching this team play over the past few years. When they play to their best, they play such pure volleyball. But this wasn't it. And this was far from it. And I really, really hope that moving forward, you'll have a little bit more respect for the teams that you play. Because realistically, most of you don't know squat. All right? So overall, great job by my Maple Volleys. Unreal. Oh yeah. Also, no Brody Hofer too. Thank you, June. Right? Skylar Varga as well. I mean, Varga, I think, was a bit of a coach's decision. He's another guy who's a rookie, but Canada didn't even have our top scorer from the 2025 VNL. Okay? So thank you very much. Bye bye la visite. On se voit la prochaine fois. Zigazon, let's fucking go. Okay? Now, moving on from Canada and Japan to a team that has really looked deadly. Another team who has qualified for the playoff round here at the Men's Volleyball World Championships and have done it by, we talked about how Japan had to play 2 VNL teams and they're 0-2. Bulgaria has had to play 2 VNL teams and they're 2-0. First, taking down Germany in a wonderful 3-0 win with a massive 40-38 first set win, and then fighting off the reverse sweep against Slovenia yesterday to be able to qualify. It was a lot of fun to watch. I didn't watch the full thing. I just kind of scrubbed through it until about the end of the beginning of the fourth set into the fifth, and here is some of my notes. Real quick, J.O. Hofer is sick. It looks like he contracted something, was losing a lot of weight, and he is in the process. When I've talked to him, he's in the process of recovering. We're wishing him the best of luck. He's in the process of recovering, and we will see him later on this season play for Halkbank, hopefully once the season gets going on. But looking at Bulgaria, to me, Bulgaria has already qualified, and they're probably going to be able to grab their top spot in their pool because they just need to beat Chile, who have yet to win a set, and I think they probably can. And for me, Alex Nikolaus continues to prove that he is one of the best offensive players in the tournament and in the world, to be perfectly honest. Another masterclass by him, 26 points. He was 23 for 49, 47% hitting, 29% efficiency with a block and 2 aces. He leads the tournament in both scoring and attacking. He's averaging 6.75 points per set and 6 kills per set. But to me, it's also how the rest of the team is playing, and I think you got to give a lot of credit to Blankini. Bulgaria has really been able to dominate down the middle. Petrov and Grozanov both lead the World Championships in blocks with 7 each. They are 1-2 in blocking. And to be honest, not only does Moni continue to improve in his setting, his decision-making is better, his delivery is better. He is able to kind of judge when he needs to set his brother and when he needs to go elsewhere, because it's very, very clear that Alex is the center point of that offense. But his offenses of abilities and his ability to attack the ball at all times really opens up Bulgaria's offense, right? There's no setter in the world who really makes you think and be aware on that second touch. And if ever there's a high dig towards Moni and he's in the back row, he's going to swing on it. And it doesn't matter if it's in the first or the fifth, he's going to swing on it, and he does pretty damn good, right? He was 6 for 4 in attacking. I think he got blocked once, no unforced errors, but he also has 4 aces. And he's continuing to prove that he could be one of the best servers in the world. His ability to make good plays in big moments is absolutely unreal. He's actually 5th in aces in the World Championship so far, and is averaging 0.75 aces per set, which is unreal. But as I mentioned before, I do really think that this has been a team effort by Bulgaria, and it's the entire team that has been really, really good. Asparuhov is they're playing a bit of a 3 outside hitter system with Asparuhov on the right, and then when he's in the back, he hits in the pipe, and then Alex, when he's in the back row, he hits the C ball. Asparuhov was really, really good, added 17 or 18 points. Antanasov as well has been super solid in serve receive. I think he added 8 points. But, Kolev, their libero, got 46% of the receives in this one. He was targeted 37 times, and he had 47% positive, 27% perfect. And it's just been a really, really all around tournament by Bulgaria. And Jo, call me crazy, I think the semifinal will be Brazil versus Bulgaria. Honestly, I don't know what to think anymore, because that one bracket of whoever is going to be play Brazil is going to be very interesting. I thought it was going to be Cuba, but that we'll talk about that in a little bit. I don't want to get too ahead of myself here, okay? I think that so much credit in all of this needs to go into Blankini. I think he is managing his roster really, really well. It's very clear who has the green light to go for it, and who has the the message to, hey, we need you to manage your swings. Hey, we need to you to manage your gameplay. Bulgaria only made 7 hitting errors in this match. 6 of them are from Alex Nikolov. And I bring this back to what I said about Moni and the way that he has managed the offense. I think that he's done a really, really good job at putting the other guys in really good positions. Whereas whenever there's junk, he's just going to throw it high up for Alex. So if Alex is going to go out there and be swinging the way that he is, you're 100% all right with six errors. Absolutely, even more in a 5-set match like this. All right. So I just think that the chemistry right now around this Bulgarian team definitely has to do with how clear the roles are from Blingini and how clear this is how we're going to play, because this is how everything is going to be able to work together. And we're seeing that clicking here at the World Championship, something that we didn't really see, or we saw glimpses of in the VNL earlier on in the summer. And ultimately, I think at the end of the day, because like Slovenia had all of the momentum heading into the fifth, right? It was a close back and forth battle in the fourth. Moni served an ace just to keep things interesting, and it was a really, really close one. But Slovenia was leading throughout the majority of the fifth, and they were up 11-9 at one point. And then there was a big 4-point run. And at the end of the day, I think that great athletes make great plays in big moments. And both the Nikolovs are great athletes. And it gives the rest of that team the ability to be like, I don't need to overextend myself because I know that we have players who are going to go out there and ball out. And that's exactly what we saw from Alex, right? He had 6 points, 5 for 9 with an ace in the fifth. Moni was the same thing, got a nice big kill as well. So it was just a really, really good match all around for Bulgaria. And I'm really enjoying the way that they're playing right now. This is a team that doesn't have the horses of a Slovenia. It doesn't have the horses necessarily of a Germany, right? These are two teams who have been in the mix with arguably some of the best players in the world, and it just really hasn't worked. Now, to touch on Slovenia a little bit, I don't have a picture for them, but I do think that this one was a really tough one for them. They came down 0-2, led 11-9 in the fifth, and really just struggled. And I think that, having Nick Mujanovic out there makes sense, right? He is a big arm. He can score. You want to have 2 of your best hitters out there, especially since they're missing the Rock and you're missing a Chibul. But Mujanovic especially, I just think that his serve receive really struggles. But then also in the fifth, there was a bunch of undisciplined play. He had 2 errors, one an attack error, and the block error where, it was really tight. He invaded over on Moni. There was another play too where he should have been called for a foot fault, and he didn't. That was Slovenia's only error of the match, or only serving error of the fifth set. And there was just some tough situations that wouldn't have happened, I think, if Chibul or Rakmozic were there overall. And then I do think that, I don't know what's happening with Slovenia, because they were losing the middle battles all night in this one, which is generally where they're pretty good, with Kozimiernik down the middle. And then finally, where's Tine Ernout? He's literally in the huddles in the fifth set, not wearing his jacket, jersey on, put me in, coach, ready to go. And Soli doesn't even look at him. If you're not going to put out one of the guys who got you there, one of the legends of this program, what are you doing? Right? What is Fabio Soli doing out there with this Slovenian team? Now, they still have a chance to beat Germany. I think that matchup is going to be really, really good, but we'll talk about it in just a little bit. And then another match that I do want to touch on as well is big shout out to the Belgian team. Okay, I said it before that I thought their matchup against Ukraine was going to dictate a lot, and that this Belgian team is really, really good, and that they're exactly as I said they were going to be. They've got 3 really, really, really elite outsides. Okay, Ferry Riegers is one of the best scorers in the world. No doubt about it. We've seen him do it with Milano, and we're seeing him do it again here with the Belgian national team, and he was outstanding in this one. 23 points, 20 for 36, 56% hitting, 50% efficiency and 3 blocks. But then you also got a lot of help from Sam Daru and Sepe Ratti, who both had 13 apiece on the outside. And now, as I said before, Belgium doesn't pass all that well. They only pass 31% positive, 11% perfect in this one, but they can hit really, really well out of system. And then they also did a really, really good job at really just dismantling Dmytro Yanchuk. And Yanchuk was one of the top scorers in the entire VNL. He led Ukraine in scoring throughout the VNL. Only 8 points in this one. He was 6 for 20, 30% hitting, 0% efficiency with 1 block and 1 ace. Vasil Tupci had to carry them. He was 12 for 24, 50 and 42, but it just really wasn't enough for this Ukrainian team. Same thing with Yuri Semeniuk, one of their big bodies down in the middle. Still unable to get any blocks, and Ukraine, unfortunately, in that tough pool alongside now, like they have to beat Italy to be able to move on. And I'm not saying that's impossible. I'm pretty sure they played them pretty tough this summer, but it was not the best match from Ukraine, and this was the match they needed to win. Right? This was the match they needed to prepare for. It was very clear that Belgium was prepared for this matchup and that Ukraine was not. Okay? I'm going to just go down now, pool by pool, just to break things down, set the scene a little bit. Half of the pools have played like 2 matches each, 2 matches per team. And the other half of the pools have only played 1, so we'll break that down a little bit, starting with Pool A. And Pool A, man, is this ever interesting in Pool A. And I think, guys, we may see a situation where for the first time ever, actually, I don't know if this is fact, but I'm just going to assume it is. But I think for the first time ever, the African teams are better than the Asian teams. Obviously, we have Japan going 0-2 versus Canada and Turkey, not winning a set, where you have Libya, who won a set. Both of those teams earned sets against both of those teams, looked much more dangerous against both of those teams. But then specifically here in Pool A, where it's just straight up Africa versus Asia, we might have a situation where both African teams move on. Okay, Tunisia obviously beating the Philippines. That's to be expected. But Egypt taking down Iran in 5, 25-17, 25-16 for Iran, then 25-23, 25-20. And as I said, remember, Egypt missing some of their top players from 2024, missing their captain, right? So El Hosseini was really good in this one. He was 15 for 23. He hit 65% with a 43% efficiency. Sif Abed as well, 10 for 23. Saeed on the opposite, much of the same, 16 for 26 and a 62% efficiency. No errors. Egypt hit 57 and 43 as a team. They only made 3 unforced errors in this one, 7 blocks, 8 aces. Unreal job by Egypt, and that's not really what to expect for them. And I expected a lot more out of Iran. Offensively, they actually weren't all that bad. I thought they were going to start Bardia Sarab, but instead they started Hajipur on on the left side. No, in the opposite position. He was 13 for 23, 57 and 39 with 3 blocks and an ace, but just couldn't get things going. Iran looked a little bit disjointed, which I'm a little bit disappointed in. I thought a Piazza team, an Iranian team led by Piazza, would be able to take care of business. And you know what? It doesn't get any harder, because I honestly think that Tunisia is a better team than Egypt right now. So I'm going to be watching their matchup really, really closely, because if Tunisia can get that win and you've got the 2 African teams moving on, then realistically, the only hope for the only last Asian team that could possibly move on is China, because Qatar is technically Asia. They're getting slapped. Korea getting slapped. Japan getting slapped. Philippines getting slapped. Iran, then like the bona fide number 1 in the region, now getting slapped by Egypt as well. So the Asian volleyball hopes, for all intents and purposes, rest on the shoulders of Iran when they take on Tunisia. I guess it's tonight. Yeah, later on tonight. Okay. Moving on to Pool B. This is another one that has already been taken care of. Obviously, Poland, perfect so far. 6-0 in sets, full points. That's to be expected. We move on, but big shout out to the Dutch. I was very unsure if the Dutch were going to be able to get this done. They did lose a set against Qatar, but they also won against Romania. This pool has some of the most interesting jerseys. Qatar's I'm a little unsure, but Romania's with the flames, I actually kind of like. Not too bad, but pretty impressive by the Dutch overall. Michel Ayi is one of the best scorers for this event too. I think he's the second best scorer in the tournament. He's averaging 5.43 points per set with 38 points through 2 matches. So big ups to the Dutch. Obviously, they had a bit of a tough go with the VNL this year and getting relegated. So you like to see Joel Banks and crew getting a little bit better, making it work a little bit better. Okay, moving on to Pool C. We're going to see more of Pool C again tonight. France opening up with an easy 3-0 win over Korea, but Argentina and Finland, a bit of a close one. Obviously, Argentina bringing back Luciano Di Cecco into this roster, but really, really impressive job by Finland over the course of this one. On the Argentina side, Luciano Polonsky with 19 and Pablo Kukartsev as well with 20. Kukartsev was 16 for 37. Polonsky was 18 for 32. But Finland on the other side, we weren't expecting much from them, but Mikael Jonas, 25 for 37. With hitting a 68% with a 46% efficiency. Luka Martila also pretty good, 15 for 35 with 18 points. And then Petteri Tanisma, really strong numbers, 10 for 14 with 71% kills percentage, 57% kill efficiency, and 6 blocks down the middle. Finland had an overall 14 blocks in this one. You kind of feel for them, but the Golden League champs just kind of lost a little bit of momentum in this one as the really, really good job by Argentina just to get back in this one. And also shout out to Fedor Ivanov, their setter. He was butter, as people in the chat were saying. I only skimmed through this one a little bit. Trying to watch all of the matches back on replay is just not really feasible. Okay, so maybe I'm definitely going to try to tune in to. Does Finland play tonight? We'll look at that a little bit later. But Finland will have to beat France, unfortunately, to move on. So that was their opportunity, and it's just too bad that they weren't able to take advantage of it. Moving on to Pool D. This is one that was really, really interesting. Obviously, Cuba losing to Portugal in their first match, but the U.S. have done a really, really good job of just taking care of business, of just going out there and playing their game, taking care of business, and really just doing what they needed to do. I thought Ethan Champlin has been fantastic. He was 8 for 13 in this one for 10 points. Also, Jordan Ewart was pretty good. He was 11 for 21. Gabby Garcia was all right. 8 for 22, but only an 18% efficiency, but he did have 2 blocks and 2 aces. He's going to have to be a lot better, especially as the U.S. is looking for a matchup against Cuba, and Cuba needs a win, right? Cuba needs a win because Portugal is probably going to beat Colombia. And then Cuba is going to need a full points, they need to basically win 3-0 against the U.S. to be able to put themselves, if they can't win 3-2, okay, they need a win because it's going to go to points. And if they win 3-1, then it's going to go to point ratio. So Cuba needs a 3-0 win over the U.S. And I do think that's possible, right? Cuba is Cuba. They play well against the good teams and they play poorly against the bad teams. And that's what we saw when they took on Portugal. Not saying that Portugal is a bad team at all. I think especially last night in their match, they were just really outclassed by the U.S. There's no way to say it. The U.S. was really, really good. They managed their errors in serving. They had 4 aces for only 7 errors. So really put a lot of pressure on Portugal. and Portugal just struggled to score. But I do think that matchup between the U.S. and Cuba is going to be really, really important because Cuba needs it. If not, they're going to go home, right? And that is not what Cuba wants. They do not want to be known as the team that lost to Portugal, because as I said before, that pathway to the finals or like the semifinals for whoever is in this bracket alongside Bulgaria, whoever comes out as number 2 there, it's like USA, Bulgaria, and then whoever finishes in that second spot between Cuba and Portugal, and then Slovenia and Germany, that is really going to have an interesting run all the way to the semifinals against Brazil. So I think it's going to be very interesting in that matchup, USA, Cuba, in not tonight, but tomorrow. I think that's going to be a fun one to watch. Okay. Moving on to Pool D. I just talked about it a little bit. Bulgaria, they are going to be moving on no matter what. They have their 2 wins. Only one other team is going to be able to have 2 wins. Even if they lose to Chile, it shouldn't matter. They should move on. But obviously we want them to win against Chile so they can get that number 1 spot. But on the other side, Slovenia versus Germany, whoever wins moves on, right? It doesn't matter if it's in 3 or in 5. Whoever wins moves on. And I think, honestly, I know that Slovenia pushed Bulgaria to 5, but I think Germany is the better team, and I think they have more firepower out there. So I think this is going to be a very, very interesting matchup, and we'll have to see how Germany can respond. I don't think that match could have gone so differently against Bulgaria if they were just able to clutch out that first set. And now that Grosjean has had a bit of a match and got his feet underneath a little bit with a good result against Chile, I think that's going to make it very, very, very interesting moving forward. And that matchup in 2 days between Slovenia and Germany, I think, is another must watch. Okay, moving on to Pool F. As we talked about it before, Belgium taking down Ukraine. They still have to play Italy and Algeria. They got to take care of business against Algeria, of course, to move on, but they are in a very, very, very good position, whereas Ukraine needs a win against both, right? They lose one of those matches, they are most likely done because Belgium is most likely going to take care of business against Algeria, okay? Algeria, the one African team, I guess I forgot to mention, that hasn't had as much success as the other ones so far. Finally, Pool G, we talked about it a lot. I think the next matches are going to be really, really good. Can Libya beat Japan? Like, what happens? Truly, truly, truly. What happens if Libya beats Japan? Like, how upset would the Weebs been if they end up losing to Libya? And Libya's been good. Libya has come out aggressive. The Ibari brothers are really, really good. Right? One of them plays for Modena and is going back to play for Modena. So can they get the job done against Japan, or can Japan wake up and at least finish this match or this tournament on a high note with a win in front of the Mandrake crowd, that is the Filipino crowd that loves the Japanese team and kind of no one ever else? We will see. I think that the Turkey Canada match is going to be unreal for so many reasons. We're talking about a bit of a revenge match for Team Canada after Turkey knocked them out of the 2022 World Championships and gave us our worst result since 2010. But as Berkay has mentioned many times, there is a big link between Turkish and Canadian volleyball because of the role that Glenn Hogue has played at Arcus over the years. So many of our Turkish fans love so many of our Canadian players because they grew up in that Arcus system. And as Berkay keeps on pointing out, Nick Hogue playing for Arcus has lost out starting positions to Mandaracha, to Mirza Lagumja, to Gochen. So it is going to be a very, very interesting matchup. I'm going to try everything I do to do a watch along for that one. I might even invite some of our Turkish friends, Rodman's Hair and Berkay, Cem and Berkay on just to join and to talk some shit. But I think it's going to be a really, really fun matchup. I think Berkay said it in the Discord that Canada has a much higher floor and Turkey has a much higher ceiling, and I definitely think that's true, especially with both these teams that they have right now. Both of them are led by pretty dominant opposites. Canada's a little bit stronger down the middle. Obviously, I think Turkey is a little bit stronger on the outside. Where I do think that Canada has the advantage right now is going to be the coaching. Okay. I mean, hey, all right. So I think that Canada is going to be able to game plan better with Dan Lewis than Turkey is with Slobodan Kovac. But hey, this one's for top of the pool, and you got to love it. One game, winner takes all, and loser has to play Poland in the first round, whereas the winner has to play the Dutch. So it will be a lot of fun. In June, if you want to come on for that one, please, you can come. You can come and join. Okay. Yeah. Why not? We'll make it an invite to all, and anyone can come join my my watch along live stream for when Canada plays Turkey, because I think it's just going to be flying with chirps and insults. And ultimately, I'm going to say it now, whoever wins this one, no hard feelings. Like, this is the perfect situation. We're all moving on, and the weebs aren't. Okay. The weebs aren't moving on, and both of our teams are. So no matter what happens in this matchup between Canada and Turkey, I think we all win. Okay, and let's just keep our heads and have a fun time, and we can all enjoy it. Finally, looking at Pool H, I'm actually going to do a live stream tonight to watch some Pool H ball, because Brazil and Czechia I think is going to be a really interesting matchup. Czechia is one of those teams that, we don't really know much about. We haven't really seen them play all of that much, but they're a team with some really, really good players. Now, they dominated. Well, not dominated, but they 3-donged Serbia in their first match of this tournament. Patrick Indra, as we know, can be one of the best scorers in the world, and he has continued to that on the international stage. He was 14 for 22, hit a 64 and 50 in this, which is really, really good. I think Lucas Fashina as well. He also added another 13 points. He was 11 for 22 and also passed the ball lights out on 22 targets. Czech Republic is actually Czechia, I apologize, is a really, really good ball control team. And especially with Indra out there, they've got people who can put the ball away. So I think that their matchup against Brazil is going to be very interesting. I'm going to do a live stream and a watch along for that one. So I think this one's going to be very interesting. And as I mentioned before, I do think that China came out really, really strong. They won that first set. They dominated. They absolutely dominated Brazil in the first set of their match. And, China, I think, is a team who's very, very well coached. Remember, Vital Heinen has won a world championship before. He knows how to get the job done. And the best thing about Vital Heinen is a coach who knows how to have help a team overachieve, right? He knows how to make sure a team can be better than they are. And in that first set, they just came out guns a-blazing, and it really knocked off Brazil after that. And it really brought the best from Brazil. And we saw that. Brazil really needed to change their game. They needed to make their blocking quite a bit better. They kind of got bullied a little bit from the baseline. Their passing wasn't that great, only passed 18% perfect as a team. But I thought Kochopa did an unreal job at being able to spread that offense. Big shout out to my boy, Arthur Bukmiuk, Arthur Bento, for leading the match with 17 points. He was 15 for 37 in attacking, did have 5 unforced hitting errors. And I do think that just shows how aggressive China was in this match. 14 unforced hitting errors for Brazil in this one, compared to just 5 for China. And it was the same thing from the baseline. Only 5 aces for 10 missed serves on China's side, 1 ace for 15 missed serves on Brazil's side, but still they were able to get it done, spread that offense out. Judson had 14, Alan had 13, Lucarelli not getting that much volume, 9 for 22 with only a 23% efficiency. So I really think that China still has a really, really good shot at being potentially the only Asian team at moving on. So I think that these matchups are going to be really, really interesting. And Serbia is still a wild card team too, right? Even though they lost that first match, they're still not done and out. They can turn around. They could beat China today. You'll have 3 teams with 1 win, and 3 teams, potentially looking to move on after this, and we'll see what happens in first Czechia versus Brazil. All right. And yeah, I think that's about it. All right, because I have to say that this World Championships has been way more interesting than I expected. June, come on, don't chirp me out here. I'll tell you why. But I do think that this World Championships has been way more interesting than I expected. So many teams have shown up different than what we've expected, and we've just made it a little bit. It's just been really interesting. And June, it's because it is really cold in Canada. Well, not really cold, but it is. You know, a little. We're getting into fall. It's a little chilly in Canada right now, so we're trying not to use the AC. But I also don't have any windows in this room, so this room, which is really small, gets really, really hot, whereas the rest of my house gets really, really cold. Okay, so what are people talking about here in the chat? Let's Dado message me on Discord and stuff, and we can talk about some of these matchups, and maybe I'll be able to do a watch along for some of them. But I will do a watch along tonight for Czechia Brazil, because I think it's going to be a good one. Okay, and yeah, and then Yaru the Wise. Just go back to the beginning of this show. I did a big breakdown on Japan and Canada and what I thought about Japan. Okay. Shout out to everyone who's been following along. Really appreciate you. The Discord's been popping off. If you're not in the Volleyball Source Discord, what are you doing? It is the best volleyball. It's the best volleyball community in the world. It's the best, online volleyball community in the world. I will stand by that all day long. You guys make watching the games a lot of fun. I had a blast last night just being on the Discord and, chatting and talking with you. Of course, it's way better when my team is winning. So if you're not already in the Discord, come join it, and we will see you next time. And we'll see you later also for the watch along between Brazil and Czechia. All right. Peace. Thank you very much. And we will see you soon. Adios.